Recording here. All right, again, Pastor Graham for Lighthouse Christian Center. Good evening. Welcome to our virtual Zoom Bible study. We worship every Sunday in person at Fort Dorchester High School, 8500 Patriot Boulevard in North Charleston. So come out and worship with us in person. We also stream services live on our church Facebook page. So we're glad to have this opportunity to connect with you today, and we would love to see you in person. Many of you have heard us on radio for the last few years. Our radio broadcast airs every Monday at noon on 106.3 WJNI, and I'd love to meet some of you in person. I get phone calls. People order CDs, and sometimes I meet people in the street, and a lot of you do come in person. So thank you for doing that. And we would love to continue to see you. If you haven't come to a live service, we would love to see you in person. All right. Hey, Brother Swinton, how are you, sir?
How you doing, Pastor? Can you hear me? Hold on. Can you hear me now?
Loud and clear.
Okay, sir. How are you?
Good. Let me put a couple of announcements out there, and then we'll get started, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, just as a reminder, those who may be viewing live on Facebook or those who may view after the fact, again, we'll be in person this Sunday at 10:30 a.m. We will not have a New Year's Eve service this Friday, but we will resume Sunday morning as usual. We encourage you to join our Facebook or like our Facebook page, Lighthouse Christian Center Church, YouTube channel. Go to our website and our contact page. We would love for you to get on our email list. And we have upgraded, if you will, our safety protocols for our in-person worship service. I do want to mention that we have put some changes in place. We're still checking temperatures at the door. We're still encouraging masks. We are still socially distancing right now with our altar calls. We've made some changes there as well. And we're using the entire auditorium. We have a very large mass worship facility, and so we were using kind of one side, but we're using all spaces and all sides and areas of the auditorium, and we have multiple exits as well. So just want to put that out there. So we've done everything possible to make it safe for you to come in person. All right, so we've been talking about leadership, Brother Swinton. I want to get into this. I was going to possibly move away from the subject, but there's a couple more things I think I want to mention about the subject, and so we want to talk about this a little bit today and get your take on some things, and then we'll get into some discussion. So today I want to talk about some common mistakes that leaders make. Common mistakes. I call this leadership blunders. And just as a backdrop, we've defined a leader as anyone who influences others. Anyone who has influence is a leader. We said every Christian is a leader. Parents are leaders. I think every person can be qualified as a leader because we all influence someone. And we said being a leader is very difficult. It comes with great responsibility, and good leadership is very rare. It's not common, unfortunately. And we said that leaders must first be servants. Obviously, the best leader is Jesus Christ. We have to model ourselves after him if we want to lead. And we said, when you talk about leadership, character matters. The qualities that make us up as individuals, it absolutely matters. Our behavior, our choices, our decisions, our actions, they do matter. So can you think of any common mistakes, any that come to your mind? Common mistakes, I have a couple, but I want to just see what your thoughts are. Any common mistakes that leaders make that you can think of? Just off the top of your head. And again, this is anybody, any Christian, any parent, any supervisor, any person really, but especially when it comes to impacting the lives of others.
Oh man, that is a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
I think one of the big, there's a lot. There's a lot of things, being on both sides of the fence, as they say, being military and civilian. And I found out, and I thought it was just a couple right off the top. First is compassion. Compassion for your employees, emotional intelligence, whatever label you want to put on it. Because if a leader doesn't show compassion for his employees, he's got a problem. He's going to have a problem, and the company the organization, the storefront, the brick and mortar, whatever, it's going to suffer later. Okay. And the second thing I would say that a lot of leaders, they're focused on the bottom line. They're
Yeah.
focused on the financial statement. They're focused on a certain goal, which, okay, I get it. But you have to focus on the people first, because without the people, you would not reach that financial goal.
I'll
And
tell you this. Oh, go ahead.
not just for that moment, but on a continuing basis.
Right.
Okay. And the third thing I think that for leaders, they don't listen.
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't listen. I mean, listen with your ears, your brain, your heart, all the above. Not just, and you can sense it. And I've sensed it myself when someone, they want you to hurry up the conversation. They want you to speed up the conversation because they're being distracted by something else. You can tell, and you can sense it, at least I can. When somebody's saying, okay, tell me what you got to tell me quick so I can go, or so I can do this, or so I can do that. Wait a minute, you're the CEO for 1,000 people. You want me to hurry because that person might have something that's going to benefit you as a leader, that's going to benefit the company, that's going to benefit everyone involved. And a lot of leaders, sometimes they sell their employees short, which is a fatal mistake. And now, and I'll close with this, sir, in this time of COVID, you see articles where people are leaving. They're leaving their job, and even locally, you make 6-7 figures and you leaving. Why? It makes no sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
But it happens because the leadership is suffering.
Yeah. You said a mouthful, because there's a lot of data that's out there that shows it's not the number one, but it's up there. One of the main reasons that people leave jobs is poor leadership, poor management. And, the fact of the matter is sometimes those in leadership positions literally run people off. And it's unfortunate because we spend so much time at work, but a lot of the stresses we pick up is at work and dealing with those who may be over us. I want to kind of look at all three of the things you talked about with a lack of compassion. I think as leaders, and I think this is at every level, I do agree, because that lack of compassion is a big part of what every person has to do that's influencing the lives of others. And the first thing I thought about was, Jesus was never like that. He was completely compassionate. He showed empathy. He cared, concern. I think when you're around him, you sense his love. He was people-centered. He was focused on others. I mean, he made the statement himself. He said, I didn't come to be served. I came to serve people. So he came for the interests of others. And I think sometimes as leaders, I've been guilty of this too, we have a hard time putting ourselves in somebody else's shoes for whatever reason.
Yes.
And I think, and this is one thing I was going to touch on, I think we're self-absorbed. We focus so much on self. Sometimes we kind of lose touch of the pulse of the people around us. And it's like we're numb, or we're tone deaf to, we're not sensitive to what's going on around us. It's like we have all these blind spots. And because of that, I think it does manifest in a lack of compassion. We just have a hard time putting ourselves in other people's shoes and, feeling what they feel, hear what they hear, especially when, I know in one field I've been in, people have argued that, the whole idea of bureaucracy is leading from the desk or leading from the office and never getting down to see what's happening, what's going on, what are the people saying, what do they feel, what are their opinions, getting a pulse of what's really happening. And I think good leaders do that. They understand the sentiments of the people who they're leading, whether it's family, whether it's on the job, and which really kind of falls into the listening piece. Sometimes as leaders we fail to listen. And actually what you said was one of the things I was going to say as well. Just not really being sensitive to the needs around them. I learned this, a whole lot just in marriage and, job, ministry. I remember a while ago, Carolyn had a conversation, and I realized, like, man, I said, men and women are completely different. I said, it's just, I was like, man, I said, we do different. I mean, and, just listening, hearing, I was like, whoa, it's like, I never heard it before. I'm sure she said it before. But, that listening piece is critical, critical. And I
Yes,
think
sir.
sometimes we don't realize how self-absorbed we are,
Yes,
you know.
sir.
It's
Absolutely.
just
Absolutely.
it and so I think that's why, you got to have people around you who can shoot you straight and be honest with you, and sometimes tell you things that you don't want to hear.
All the time, sir. All the time. But
Is
if I may inject, sir,
yeah.
sometimes it's painful, but I've learned it's some of the best medicine, man, that you can get. And yes, when I was taking it, it was on the cheek, it was in the heart, in the mind, it was everywhere. But as I look back, as we have this conversation today, as we study God's word, it was one of the greatest things that could have ever happened to me. Yes, was it painful? Yes, it was painful. Do I think about it now? Yes. And make sure I do not go down that road again.
Yeah, for sure.
But I've learned that communication piece, sir, regardless of your level, I don't care. It will bring you down. It will bring you down. If you don't have that communication, man, you are in deep trouble. That's all it is too. And this is talking from experience. And it's one of the hardest things to do because I was not that type of person. I mean, I don't want to hear what you got to say, And unfortunately, as we speak, there are a lot of relationships, and I don't want to point a finger, but generalize. But one of the key problems, nobody talks to each other. And during this time of COVID, I've heard horror stories. What do you mean you don't want to talk to your husband? He's right next door in the next room. What are you talking about? What do you mean you don't want to talk to your kid? You always say you don't have time to talk to your kids. Now you have time to talk to your kids, and they're right next door. What?
No,
I don't get that.
I've heard a lot of stories like that. Matter of fact, more times than not, especially when we were, I guess, semi-locked down. I had some people, they said, man, he said, I don't know if our marriage is gonna make it. I said, what are you talking about? He said, like, we're home all the time. Like I didn't have to see him, or I didn't have to see her this much. So now, and now they're working from home. And I've had some people like, oh my God, my spouse's schedule has changed. Like, what am I gonna do? I was like, so it's really tough. No, I concur, because I think about 80 to 90% of problems, in leadership or just relationships can be solved by communicating.
Yes,
And
sir.
I've made mistakes in that area, just in my life, just not communicating enough, not communicating effectively,
Yes.
poor timing. When I communicated, maybe I should have communicated, weeks before. I mean, it's just a lot of it. I've seen it in ministry, relationships, marriage, on the job. Communication is critical, and I think that's one reason why we don't have a good pulse of what's going on around us, because we don't get the feedback and the opinions and the suggestions. Again, that's a major mistake that leaders make. We just don't listen. And again, we all influence somebody. Don't necessarily have to be a manager or supervisor, but I think that is a big mistake. I want to say something, as you mentioned, and again, we're talking about mistakes that leaders make. We're still on that leadership series, and you mentioned something about leaders tend to focus on the bottom line only. Now, leaders, they have to look at the bottom line. I get that, because at the end of the day, especially in business, there are certain things that have to be there. However, I think the key is balance, because this is the problem I think people get into, whether it's family, on the job, with your whatever the case may be. I think when we, how can I say, some things we just use them as a means to the end. We focus on the end, and we don't focus on, I guess, how we get there. And how we get there actually does matter. If we have a goal, it matters how you get there. I mean, you can take shortcuts, you can step over folks, you can push people down to get to where you need to be, to get to a goal or an end result. You can lie, cheat, and steal to make sure the bottom line is accurate or what it needs to be. And so, how you get there, it absolutely matters. And sometimes the way we treat people on our way to achieving a goal or hitting a benchmark or making a profit, and not realizing sometimes you may have to sacrifice some of the bottom line in order to do what's right or to treat people the right way, and you make it up on the back end or something, I remember, literally, I think there was a business here in Charleston. I remember hearing it on the radio, and I think they had a billboard up, and they said their mantra was make a profit if we can. I think they're saying something to the effect that at the end of the day, we want customers to be satisfied, and hopefully we can make a profit while doing so. And I can appreciate that, and that's fair, because at the end of the day, everybody knows they got to make a profit. They need to make money, but they were admitting up front, sometimes to earn a customer, if we have to lose money, if I have to decide, I guess, between losing money and providing great service, I'll take the service over money, because we believe that service in the long run will allow us to make the money that we need. So I think you're right that as leaders, if we only focus on the bottom line, we're gonna miss it. We are.
And if I may interject, sorry. Sure. And in a lot of ways, even now, I heard this horror story about some CEO. He went on Zoom and he told all his employees, "You were fired." What? Oh, man. Come on, you do over 900 employees. Can you imagine going on Zoom and your boss is saying, "Yeah, you are fired." Wait a minute, I got mortgage, I got family, I got Christmas. What are you talking about? I'm fired. Wow. And the way he did it, that is unbelievable. Even in this day, in this society, top Fortune 500 companies, billion-dollar company, multi-billion-dollar company, I got it. But here's the key. You have to have them employees. If they love to come to work, they love their pastor, they love their chief, they love their CEO, guess what? Your bottom line is going to grow, because they're going to come to work and they're going to be ready to work as hard as you can, or harder.
Happen anyway.
And I don't know if the smart people there at these Fortune 500 companies, whether they get it or not. Because they're surrounded by these yes people, but nobody want to tell them no. And I'll finish with this, just like in the military, nobody wants to tell the commander, "Sir, it's wrong." He's surrounded by majors, generals, lieutenant colonels, whatever. That's going to tell him what he want to hear. Don't do that. He's the commander. He can change it. He can make it better. Why do you want to tell him something different? Sure. Because it all boils down to that private. How hard that private is going to work in that foxhole. How hard that private is going to charge over the hill and take the enemy out. They have their boots on the ground.
Hey, by the way, before I forget, there's a scripture we were talking about the listening piece. James 1:19 says, "Know this, my beloved brothers, let everyone be quick to hear and slow to speak." So we got to be quick to hear.
Yes.
Any others? We talk about mistakes that leaders make. Again, everyone is a leader. Every Christian is a leader. Parents are leaders. Anybody who has influence is a leader. Any other mistakes you can think of that leaders, a common mistake that leaders tend to make? First part we were saying is lack of compassion, not listening, focus only on the bottom line. Sister Mixon, I know you got some ideas. You there? I don't want to, if you can't
I am here.
We,
The only thing that I can think
we,
of
we're ready to
ready.
hear from you now.
We're ready. Let's hear it, Sister Mickey. We're ready.
is the only thing that I can think of at the moment that I always attribute to leaders making a mistake is that, in my opinion, they always forget what it's like to be the employee.
I think that's good. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think like the compassion and the other things that you mentioned kind of come along with that. Like if you remember what it was like, sure. If you remember what it's like when you were the employee, then it's easier for you to understand what other people are experiencing.
Okay, so I'm gonna put this out here because we have an educational background, and one of the things I was proposing, because I know right now there's a teacher shortage and a lot of teachers are leaving the field. And one of the things I proposed is, I said, some of the principals, I think they need to spend a day in the classroom, or even maybe 2 or 3 days. And I think those who are on the board, at least one day, because they need to know what it's like to be around these kids. There are some employees, managers, supervisors, they haven't been quote unquote on the floor in years. In years. Some, like to your point, Brother Swinton, some haven't been in combat for years. Some educators, those who are principals, administrators, board members, they haven't been in the classroom in years. Some managers, supervisors, they haven't been, whether it's sales, whether it's in a factory, whether it's on assembly line. Like, hey, spend a day doing what, those you supervise are doing. And I think you'll get a quick dose of reality, and you'll get some empathy, and there'll be a little bit more sensitivity once you see what they deal with every day. So yeah, I think that's true. A lot of times people forget what it was like when they were coming up through the ranks, and then they kind of lose touch. They lose touch, I think. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think, but with teaching though, because they come in and they do observations and things like that, or they'll come in and teach a lesson and they will say, well, when I was in the classroom, I did this or I did that. But I think so much as it relates to teaching is about relationships.
Yeah.
So when you have a position like that, or, maybe even in the military, not so much as just maybe not in a leadership position, but as a person who's taking orders. So that feels like you can't do things again. Even though you may remember the techniques you use, you don't know what they're like with today's kids, because you forget what the responses to the techniques that you're suggesting. Just because they were effective when you were there doesn't mean that it's still the same. And I think that part, almost like being a grandparent,
Agree.
Children and society changes.
They're
so the
different.
things that work today, it's so different. And not even that society or even people change, but you change also. Like, you're not as up to date as you were with the things that draw people, draw the teenagers even to discussions with you, or cartoons that come on TV that you can relate to the kids with. They're different now.
I agree. And so sometimes the argument, well, when I was in that role, this is what I did. Well, that no longer applies to this generation, or, the kind of combat we use when I was on the front line. This is what we did. Like we have different tactics now. Like everything, the game has changed, And so I think today, that's why I think they need to step in. I think it'll be a good practice to step into someone else's shoes who they may be supervising, because that way they can kind of stay in the loop and get a good idea of what a person's day is like, what the challenges they go through. And I think it will create a sensitivity, right now, even, with kids, and even some things, Carol and I talk about with our girls, trying to relate, trying to get up trying to parent in 2022, you're learning on the fly and just figuring out what we need to do now, opposed to how we were raised and opposed to what we did, years ago, what we thought would work years ago. So yeah, I think we got to stay in the loop and current to what's happening. And I do think a lot of leaders forget what it was like. I know that for a fact. I remember a couple colleagues, they were school administrators, and they literally told me that they do not have the patience to be in the classroom now. I said, all right, now if you want to admit that, you gotta give a little grace to those who are in the classroom. I said, you said, I had more than one say the same thing. I said, you're gonna say that, then you got to empathize. And I think a lot of leaders, and whether it's business, military, even grandparents, they have to realize that it's a little different. And so you got to give a little grace to those who may be doing it every day, especially if you're supervising them or you're over them or influencing their lives, for sure. So yeah, I agree. I think that's a common mistake as well that leaders make. We how soon we forget, right? Let me give you another one I thought about. I think I've seen this a lot, not just recently, but I think it's across the board. It's a common mistake leaders make. Giving people bad advice or misinformation. And this is why I think this is a critical mistake leaders make. Leaders are seen as trusted people, whether as a parent, supervisor, manager, politician, pastor. And so as a leader, again, even if you're just instructing a friend, a child, family member, we have to be careful that we're giving people the right advice, because there are people in our lives who look up to us, and there are people in our lives who will follow our advice to the letter. And some people will take what we say as gospel. That's
Yes.
a fact.
Yes.
And so we have to be careful. That's why even in the Bible it says, don't be in a hurry to be a teacher, because you can mislead, you can really mess people up. And the level of responsibility we have when we give advice and then it's not accurate, it's not scriptural, it's not wise, it's not sound. Literally, you can give someone the wrong information and they can lose their lives. And so because there are people in our lives who will listen to us, we have to be careful. That's why, even biblically, the Bible says study to show yourself approved. You got to make sure you study. And I think as a Christian, when someone asks you for advice, counsel, spiritual advice, we have to resist the temptation of just giving a person our opinion. We need to tell them what the word says. We need to tell them what the Bible says. We need to tell them what the Bible or God's word would tell them to do in that situation. Even if we may not agree with it per se, it's always easier to give advice that you're living. But at the end of the day, we have to tell people what the Bible says. And I think it's okay if we don't know the answer to just say, I don't know, opposed to making something up and then they do it and it fails, or they get hurt, or, God forbid, they lose out on something, they lose money, lose their life. So, and even with that being said, right now, and whichever way, side of the fence you're on, dealing with the pandemic, they keep talking about misinformation, through politics, through doctors, through social media. And so we have to make sure we give people advice or information that's accurate, that's scripturally sound, that's backed by data, that will help people and not harm people. So I think that is a big, big mistake. That's one reason why, as a pastor, I try my best. If I'm going to make a statement, I need to support it with scripture. I need to support it with something that I can prove it. And I always tell people, I said, listen, if what I say, it doesn't register, if it doesn't appear to be scripturally sound, squash it. Squash it. Don't, you are under no obligation to receive it, because at the end of the day, it's not my opinion that you need. You need to hear what thus says the Lord. You all remember
Yes.
I thought about some examples of people giving others bad advice. You all remember that Jim Jones situation years ago?
Yes.
Man, that was, I think I mean, it was hundreds of people. I mean, he told them, you know, they drink under the Kool-Aid or the drink, and they were willingly being a martyr, and all the things. I've seen people in cults. I've seen people, and I mean, it's just a ton of info. And you really got it. And I think even Sister Mix, you mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, the level of information that's on the internet. You know, you got to weed through all that and figure out, hey, what do I need to listen to? You know, politicians, whatever the case may be, teachers in the classroom, you know, parents giving children bad advice, pastors. I've seen, I mean, I mentioned it this Sunday. I've seen a lot of pastoral malpractice, pastors giving bad information, bad advice, you know, bad advice and you know, things that can't be backed by scripture. It just, you have all kind of what I would call abuse or malpractice, you know, doctors giving bad advice, you name it. So I think leaders have to definitely do that as well. We gotta make sure. What are some other ways you think that we can make sure we're giving people the right advice?
Some ways to give people the right advice. Is that the question, sir?
Yeah, what are some things we can do to make sure we're giving people the right advice and the right information?
Well, I learned this the hard way. Do your research.
Yes,
And
Lord.
do your research, and I guess the term is do your homework. Do your homework. Go out there and go to different sources, go to different people, and a combination. I've tried to do a combination of things. Yes, I go on the internet. Yes, I read books. Yes, I listen to people that are expert in their field. Yes, yes, yes to all the above. And then I bring all this information and I filter, of course, and I try to use that information to answer the question. But at the same time, I put a caveat on the question. I said, look, based on my research and based on the people I spoke with and based on this, the best recommendation that I can give you is to do this. Even with my adult kids, I always say, this is my recommendation. You can either accept it or you can not accept it. But based on my research, and I figure in that way, I think that'd be the best way, because you're letting that person or group of people know that up front, I've did my research, I've did all the things above. Here's my recommendation. Now it's entirely up to you to accept it. But beware that it's not 100%. This is just what we have here. I can't say that what the information I'm giving you will work, but at least it'll be a recommendation and a step in the right direction.
I agree. I agree, because the thing is, information that we get, number one, yes, you have to do your research, you know, you before you tell anyone anything. But I think that's good, because that having that little caveat in there, because the information we receive in some things is ever evolving. I mean, we'll know more tomorrow than we know today. And so sometimes when we find out more, you know, things may change, you know, a little bit as far as the advice we give. And no, I agree with you. You know, giving recommendations. Hey, this is what I see. This is what based on the research I have up to this point. You know, sometimes when I'm talking to people, I say, listen, because, you know, they say that the best advice you can give anyone is when you ultimately leave the choice to the person. Like, you don't decide anything for anyone, you know, maybe they're a small child or something, I mean, but any other adult, you know, at the end of the day, you have to allow the person to make the decision that best suits them. But a lot of times I tell people something similar. I say, hey, if I woke up tomorrow in your shoes, this is what I did, you know, this is what I would do. You know, if I were you, if I were in your situation, if this was my predicament, this is what I would do. Now, what you do is based on you. And I think there's nothing wrong with that, because at the end of the day, you know, the person needs to be comfortable making the decision, and it can't be. And let me tell you, oh my goodness, I have seen so much abuse like this in church, where you have people in church and they're taught to not think for themselves. And I don't think that's right. I do not think that's right. I don't think that's healthy. And sometimes with pastors or just leaders in general, I don't know if it's an ego thing, a pride thing, an insecurity thing. A lot of times leaders, we make the mistake of not wanting people to think for themselves. And I think that's totally anti-God. At the end of the day, God he gives us a free will, you know, and that kind of control is witchcraft. It's just, it's not even, following someone blindly, loyalty to no end. That's not good. That is a big mistake that leaders make. I see that, and the sad thing is I see it more in church. And maybe because I'm in church more than the average person, but I see it a lot in church where people don't think and they're encouraged not to think for themselves. That is church abuse, and it's not good. It's not biblical. It's not sound, and God will never have. And again, I think that's the whole idea of just giving people bad advice, misinformation, and we have to be very, very careful. Any thoughts there, Sister Mixon?
Yes, two. One is to give the advice you would want to take.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Because I don't think people give advice that they would actually take. They give advice that, well, if I were you, I would do this, but given the same set of circumstances,
They wouldn't.
They don't give advice to you. And the other one was to tell, not just when you give advice, to give the positives, but also the negatives. Because like you said, people should be making, you're just leading them to the water. You're not forcing them to drink, from your perspective. But so in order for them to make an informed decision and for you to give informed advice, you have to know the pros and cons. So you just can't load up a person with a bunch of pros without giving them the cons to that decision.
Yes.
I completely agree. Yeah. And that is critical because here's the thing. A lot of times when we are giving information or advice, we only highlight the positives. But and I can appreciate that, with doctors, for the most part, those who practice very well, because even if they're subscribing medicine, they say, hey, they always tell you the side effects. They always tell you, we know what it's supposed to do, how it's supposed to help, but also they tell you up front that, hey, you may lose your hearing, you may have a blood clot, whatever. I mean, you don't want to hear it, but at least up front. So I think it's a good practice because I mean, you can give advice or give information. You need to, and let me, again, I think we're guilty of this in church, because, God's going to bless your socks off, but we don't tell them that, the Bible says all who love godly in Christ will suffer persecution. We don't tell them that part. Like, no, we tell them all the stuff that's going to make them run in like, oh, yeah. Like God's going to he's going to turn it around. He's going to blow you up. He's like, man, he's going to have your name in lights. And he didn't tell you it's probably going to take 15 years to happen. So, like he's thinking tomorrow. Yes, and, man of God, man, I see, God blessing you financially. And he didn't tell you, now the first 2 years you're going to be on food stamps, but farther down the line, like you're going to be loaded. So, so no, I think we do need to tell people, hey, these are the pros. These are the cons, and this is what might potentially can happen. Like there's a chance it's not going to work out. There's a chance it may fall through. I'm just telling you up front, there's a chance that this is not going to, go as planned. So I think we just need to be honest when we give people advice, sometimes brutally honest.
Yes.
And I think we need to highlight the cons too, or, possible consequences or repercussions, or, just something, preparing for the unexpected, things we didn't foresee, or things that, we couldn't research or project, and be honest about it so that if it happens, person doesn't come back us angry and say like, well, you didn't tell me this. So yeah, giving people bad advice, misinformation. There's a couple others, but I want to focus on one just for the sake of time. I was going to talk about, we talked briefly about this at church. Pride is a big mistake, obviously. Sexual misconduct, that's a big mistake. I've seen that with a lot of leaders. We can go into that. I may talk a little bit more about that on Sunday. Just too much issues in that area. But what talk about, I think, especially when it comes into the realm of the body of Christ, a lack of faith. This obviously applies to believers. Why do we need faith in God to become a good leader? What I'm saying, a lack of faith can be a mistake, a common mistake that leaders make. Why is faith in God so important for us as far as our ability to lead, in your opinion?
Well, here's my opinion. If you are a leader, and I guess from the perspective that we're discussing, everyone is.
Sister Mixon, is your mouth near your phone? Your volume is a little low.
Oh, can you hear me? Is it better? Hold on.
It's still low, but we can hear you. You go ahead.
Okay, what I was saying was from the perspective. Yeah. Oh, sorry. From the perspective we're discussing, I say, at least in the body of Christ, we look at faith as being like the power by which we live, because we've never seen God before, and also without faith, it's impossible to please him in the first place. So anything that we're doing from that perspective has to be faith related, faith built. And when we don't feel like our faith is built in a particular area or in a particular, because I think everybody have gifts and talents that we should be working within. When you don't feel like that your faith is built in that area, I think that's a mistake to give advice from that perspective. So you should, perhaps defer to somebody else. But by and large, we're functioning outside of the realm of God if we aren't functioning within faith.
Yeah, I think, at the end of the day, because we are believers, every believer is a leader, we have influence. You only can give people what you have, and you can't take someone to a place in God that you have not been yet.
Yes.
And so you only can help somebody but so much if you don't have, or you haven't arrived at a certain level of faith.
Yes.
And like you said, if you're not growing in your walk with God, if you're not committed, if you're not spending time in the word, if you don't know the word, you have to defer to somebody else. You literally have to refer them to someone else who may know God more than you, who may, be at a certain place in their relationship with the Lord, for sure. And in terms of just being a leader, if we're not at a certain place in our walk with God, he's our helper. He helps us lead. He helps us when we're on the job, at home, whatever role we're in. God is our help, our very present help in the time of trouble. And if we're not relying upon him, we're not walking with him daily, I would argue we're not much good to people, because we're just only operating. Now, here's the thing, well, I'm smart, I'm intelligent, I have the ability, I have experience. You're only operating, and that may be good. Don't get me wrong, that might be good, okay? But you're just operating with your own natural strength and ability. And we know there comes to a point where that's going to come to an end. The benefit we have is, as Christians, we can tap into his supernatural ability, the insight, the wisdom he can give us, his power working through us. It's like we can go into a different gear because of the presence of God in our lives, you know, opposed to just being able to go to first and second. With God, we can go to third and fourth gear, you know,
Amen.
real, you know, that's the idea. And so you can argue that as a leader, we're limited in what we can do, and we can never reach the heights as a leader that God wants us to if he's not a large part of our lives. And so faith is critical. You know, we have to do it. And then, you know, there's a couple of ways I define faith: just, you know, being our commitment to God, the way we trust him, the level of confidence we have in him and his word, you know, our dedication to him, the lifestyle we live. And if we have wishy-washy faith, I think it will impact our ability to lead in whatever role we're in, you know, not to mention just as a believer who's supposed to be influencing those around us. So in addition, I believe when we're at a certain place in our walk with God, as we're leading and having to make hard choices, I believe God speaks to us. He gives us wisdom. He reminds us of scriptures that are in the word. He leads us, and some things, I mean, he literally will tell us in some instances what we need to do. And so that's why it's important for us to be operating at a certain level of faith, especially when we're in a leadership role. So any thoughts there, Brother Swin? Good, you sign off on those things?
Yeah, I saw those.
Any other mistakes that you can think of before we close out this? Any other common mistakes that that you can think of that leaders make? Common mistakes. Trying to think of something I didn't mention either.
Well, I know that, of course, there are common mistakes, and I don't know if I should bring this up, but one of my professors when I was in college, and it was organizational behavior, and of course, something came up in the classroom, and long story short, the professor, he said that in order to be an effective leader, he said, you need to check your ego at the door.
Yeah.
And that blew me away. And that's been many, many moons ago, and I never forgot that. I said, well, what are you talking about? And so he, of course, he went on further to explain it, because he said that if you walk through the door as a leader and you had an ego, then the employee walked through the door and he's got an ego, he or she's got ego. Sooner or later, you guys are going to clash. Whether you're fired, whether the leader or the employee do something or whatever, it's going to clash. And sometimes in this day and age now, I see that ego, it changes leaders. It does things to leader. And of course, being a leader, being in a powerful position, it changes people. And I've seen this, I've witnessed even in my organization, without naming names, I've seen a person that, you know, I had really had, you know, a lot of respect for. I've seen that as they progress, their attitude changed, everything changed about them. And were they a good leader before? They were a better leader before than they are now. And I was kind of sad. I said, ooh, ouch. So I think that ego thing is what need to be checked at the door, because sooner or later it's going to clash. I know there are pros and cons about that, but I think to be an effective leader, to really be a good leader, to really have people that are willing to do things for you, it's so much that have to be brought together. But I think that we touched on many of them: honesty, compassion, humility. Ah, that is a big one. Humility. It's just so much. But that ego part, and I go back to that, and then I'll stop. It was something that stuck with me. I said, well, what do you mean ego? I mean, yes, you can have that. You can't have that. You can't do that because it's going to be a dead end. I mean, and you can see that in a lot of companies in this day, even in Fortune 500 companies, you can see a lot of that.
Yeah, I will say this, you know, the thing about leadership is, and that ego piece, you may be a leader and you may, let's say, supervise 100 people. You know, that doesn't mean you still don't have to answer to somebody. A lot of times as leaders, I mean, even if you're over a lot of people, somebody is over you. I mean, we all got to answer to somebody. So at the end of the day, we all got to answer to God.
Yes.
So yeah, we have to check our egos at the door, because even if we're in a supervisory role, a manager, or leadership, CEO, everyone answers to someone. I mean, someone may say, well, I own my own company. Well, you answer to the federal government. I mean, you got to pay taxes. I mean, there's certain people you have to listen to. There's certain vendors or some people you partner with or suppliers, whatever the case may be. So, you know, I think we got to remember that. And at the end of the day, you know, even there's a verse in the epistles where God, he's specifically talking to leaders or masters or supervisors. He said, and he reminds them, he said, remember, you got a supervisor in heaven too. So, you know, you at the end of the day, you know, people are answering to you, but you got to answer to me.
Yes.
So
yes,
we do have to keep our ego checked at the door. Another thing I thought about that I didn't think about before, as far as a mistake, is confidentiality. I've seen a lot of leaders make mistakes with that. Boy, you could lose all credibility.
yes.
Like, just like that.
Oh yeah.
Someone tell you something in confidence and they say, please keep it confident. And if you let that thing out, that's a bad mistake. And you just, and I know in some levels it can be illegal. I mean, you just, you know, there's certain things you can't. I mean, it's kind of like the HIPAA laws, you know, with your health. I mean, you can be sued if you release someone's personal health information without their permission. Like, confidentiality is a major, especially in the health field, but also in other fields as well. Money, banking industry, like, you just can't release people's private personal information to someone without authorization. That's why when you go to the doctor, you sign all these papers, and like, will you allow someone else to see your records, or is anyone else in your life who can also, because you can get them. I mean, I remember going through a training. Do you not know how much money you can get fined over a HIPAA laws? It can, like, hundreds of thousands of dollars. I remember being told, if you just leave the health information just laying around, that it's a violation. It's a violation. If you, and so you know, pastors with counseling and just, or people who come to you in confidence, a family member. My God, I mean, I've had one of my daughters tell me, like, don't tell my sister this. I was like, don't tell her. And I was like, I knew by the tone, like, if I told, well, I'd be in big trouble. I mean, you can't share with him my diaries and everything. Just all kind of. So it's just, confidentiality is, and if you ever release something or share something that someone has asked to be confidential, oh, it will be the worst. You can't come, some of those things you can't come back from. You just can't come back from. So that's what I thought about. So,
that's a good one, sir.
Like this, leadership, being a leader, a good one, is not easy. It's work. It's work. You know, again, it's all of us, really. It's every person who has influence. We have to take it seriously, because at the end of the day, people, somebody is looking at us, looking up to us. Someone's taking our advice. Someone is taking their cues from us based on how we live our life.
Yes, sir.
How we behave, our choices and our actions. And It's a lot to think about, a lot to take in. All right. Any questions or comments that you have, a prayer request? All right. Whew. Let me tell you, man, this subjects like these, I mean, it just, for lack of a better word, I mean, I don't want to use the word scared, but it makes you very mindful of what you do and what you tell people, how you live. I mean, it puts the fear of God in me, because I think we've all seen examples of leaders who have destroyed people's lives.
Yes.
And at one point, someone trusted them. It's a big responsibility. So these messages. I don't know why, God puts these messages in my heart, but they're hard. It's tough.
They are tough, sir. They are, but
it's tough on me.
they're hard. And I thank you and for teaching us about it too, because it's much to be learned, even at the highest level.
Oh,
In our society today, it's much to be learned to be a leader. Yeah, I know everybody like the dollars and the influence and the name and the recognition and the power and authority. All that's good. I got it. But it's much more than that. Much more. And like you mentioned earlier, we as Christians, we are really, everybody's gonna be called on the carpet. And I'm gonna tell you, whew, it's gonna be bad. It's gonna be bad. Because we are held to a higher standard.
And the thing is, we all have to answer to God one day. That's the thing.
Yes.
Like we have to answer to Him. And when He asks us, what were you doing in this area? What were you doing? What were you thinking?
Yes.
And
yes.
we got to answer.
Yes.
we got to have an answer.
Yes.
All right. Let me final announcement, just a reminders. Again, 10:30 Sunday, we'll be there. No New Year's Eve service on Friday. And again, we've upgraded our safety protocol at the church because, again, things are changing even with, the pandemic. And so we've done some other things just to ramp up our safety measures as well. And so we'll continue to do so. And also, before I forget, I'll probably send out a link, video or YouTube or some recording of a state of the church address. I just wanted to, I don't think I'm gonna do it live. I'll probably pre-record it and send it out about just recap the year, some of the things that took place at LCC and some of the things we're looking at and planning and believing and trusting God to do next year. So we'll send something out and may speak some of those things on Sunday, but in lieu of having a New Year's Eve service, we'll shoot something out just to celebrate everything we've been able to do this year and project toward 2022. All right, let me go ahead and close out in prayer. Father, we thank you. We bless you. Thank you for this healthy discussion on leadership, and we need your help. Continue to help us, remind us of these things so we can lead more like you led. And at the end of the day, become more like you. Help us to recall all the things we've talked about during this session tonight so we can improve, we can be better, and we can please and glorify you in all that we do. So God, we give you praise, we give you honor and the glory. Thank you for helping us. Thank you for assisting us and helping us to grow in all these areas. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, you all be blessed. Have a great
you too.
Rest of the week. We on the hump day, so we halfway through.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm gonna shoot you a couple of emails too, sir.
All right, we'll do. Thank you. Y'all be blessed. Take care.
Say hello to First Lady and them girls, sir.
We'll do. Sister Mick, say hello to Maddie and your mother as well.
Will do.
All right, y'all take care.
All right, good night.